Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill, and we have as our co-host today, Rhonda.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Glad to be back.
Good. We're back, and here we are at season 2.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's so fun. So we have a whole season 1 in the bag, and now we're starting season 2 with lots of exciting, fresh content. And one of the reasons we do this is because we think that what parents are doing is one of the most important things that's happening in the world.
That's right.
Preparing humans for life.
That's pretty important.
It is. And we're talking about the academic, spiritual, character, emotional, relational development. So many things are going on, and parents have this amazing opportunity to form and prepare their kids for life. Now, we probably have a lot of people listening, maybe on the radio and tuning in on YouTube or a podcast that are thinking about homeschooling. And so one of the purposes of this program is to help you know all about homeschooling and have the opportunity to choose that if that's something that's interesting to you. But we know a lot of people are already homeschooling. And as I've said, our goal is to help you do it with confidence and joy. We want to give you encouragement. We want to give you information. We want to give you tools. And so that's our goal. That's what we're going to do again this season. We have Homeschool Conversations, the tip of the week, news, all the things that we do. So we are so excited. Thanks for joining us for another season. And if this has been helpful or you're looking forward to it, please, again, let your friends and family know and other people, and hopefully they can join us as well.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Let's learn about what we're going to do today. In Homeschool News, we'll talk about the survey that asks the question, does homeschooling improve creative thinking among children? And in our Homeschool Conversation, we talked to HSL attorney Mike Donnelly, and we'll also talk with a young family just getting started and find out what they're learning. And our Homeschool Tip of the Week is how to plan for your best homeschool year ever.
And here we are in August, and the new year's coming up.
That's right.
All right, so we'll start with Homeschool News. And Brian Ray from the National Home Education Research Institute presented a report of a study that was done in Israel by some other researchers. And the question that they asked was, does homeschooling improve creative thinking among children? Now, we're biased. And we would go, of course it does.
Of course it does.
But they asked the question, and they had a bunch of people respond. One of the interesting things since this study was done in Israel is that they gave this statistic. The number of homeschooling families approved by the Israel Ministry of Education increased by 700% from 2005 through 2019.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a huge growth in homeschooling in Israel.
Wow.
So here's some highlights from the article. Michael Unger Madera and Iris Ben David Hadar probed the creative thinking and social competencies of home-educated children. The investigators gathered data from 549 participants who were between the ages of 8 and 12 years old. Of these, 280 were homeschooled students and 269 were public conventional school students. So they had some other variables that they were tracking along the way to compare to see if they had an influence, like the child's background, their sex, age, country of origin, the parents' background, their education, number of children, the background of the community, where they lived. But what happened was that none of those backgrounds influenced creativity. Like there was statistically insignificant. So the main comparison was homeschooled, public schooled.
Right.
Was there a difference? And so the conclusion was that students who are homeschooled have a higher level of creative thinking than students attending public schools. The researchers concluded that their study shows that homeschooling may be more effective in terms of developing creative thinking than traditional learning. Therefore, it can offer a high-quality alternative to public education or private schools for those who can choose it. So that fits in right into what I was saying at the beginning, that there are a lot of advantages to home education. And we want to be proponents of home education and let you know what they are. And one of them is because of the flexibility of homeschooling. because of the customization, the individualization that you can have, there's space for creativity.
There is.
And so if that's important to you, that would be one more reason to consider homeschooling.
One more reason.
That's right.
That's right. Well, in Homeschool Conversations, Matthew had a conversation with Mike Donnelly at the Thrive Conference this year, right? And Mike is an attorney with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and he was one of our featured speakers this year at Thrive. So let's listen as they discuss the challenges presented by those who are trying to hinder and restrict home education.
All right, we're at the 2022 Thrive NCHE Homeschool Conference, and we are especially happy to have Mike Donnelly, who's an attorney with HSLDA, as one of our featured speakers. He did our keynote yesterday, which was fantastic. What was the title for that one?
Elites to homeschoolers, we're coming for you.
We're coming for you.
We're coming for you. That's right.
So did you get a reaction to that? Was that?
I think people realize that. It's funny, we talk about that. This week, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay, but this week the World Economic Forum is meeting in Davos, Switzerland, where the thousands of elites from around the world gather. And there's a great column by Ben Shapiro where he basically says the elites are coming for us. So it's not just homeschoolers, but it's a broader thing. There's this idea that there are some people who think they know better. They want to control you. And that's in every walk of life. But there happen to be some elites who are definitely talking about us. And that's what I talked about during that talk on homeschooling. We talked about Elizabeth Bartholet. We talked about Kimberly Arauco, Jim Dwyer, Catherine Ross, Martha Feynman. These are law professors mostly. Robert Reich from Stanford. These are the people who are influencing the next generation of leaders, judges, lawyers, lawmakers. And they're not too keen on homeschooling because they think it's a threat to society. So we talked about that. We unpacked it and explained that, look, as homeschoolers, we need to be ready to defend our freedom. Because there are those who want to take it away from us.
Well, and that's my question. What should a homeschool parent think or do as they consider these things?
Well, first of all, I need to realize that there are these people out there.
Be aware.
This is not
Be
just
aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not just me making this stuff up, and this is not a conspiracy theory. There are people out there who are coming after our freedom. They need to be aware. They need to be prepared. They need to be prayerful also. Right? Prayerful about this. Because God has. I feel God has really been a protector of the homeschool movement. When you look at the history of homeschooling, I believe you see the work of God, because when a small group of people go up against the most powerful union in the world, or at least in the United States, like the teachers union, and succeed, that's miraculous, maybe. And be organized. We have to be organized. We have to be ready to defend our freedom. I mean, Ronald Reagan said that we don't hand freedom over to our children in the bloodstream. It has to be fought for, won, and preserved, and then we have to hand it over to them to do the same thing. And so that's what we're doing. And we need organizations. We need people like you, NCHE, who are equipping, empowering, getting the word out, giving me opportunity to share people what's going on.
That's right.
And they need to support organizations like NCHE, and they need to support organizations like HSLDA, because we're out there on the front lines fighting for freedom.
So here in North Carolina, one of our missions is to protect the freedom of homeschool parents to be able to homeschool, and so we're watching all the legislation. In fact, this past year there was a bill that came just into committee that would have changed in small ways what would happen in homeschool. And not only was Spencer Mason, our law and policy director, in that committee meeting, but Dan Beasley, who's also attorney with HSLDA, came down and joined with Spencer, and they got in there, and it never came out of committee.
We have to work together.
Because they're taking care of it.
Well, we have to work together, and the partnership that HSLDA has with NCHE is indispensable.
Yeah.
We have that kind of partnership with state organizations all over the country. We work together. Spencer probably would have done a great job. But there is an element to bringing in an attorney from Washington, D.C. These legislators, I'm telling you, I've talked to them all the time. They're like, who's the guy from Washington, D.C.? What's going on here? And all of a sudden, they pay more attention. And so it just brings a different element and a different perspective to what's going on. So it's really important.
Well, thank you for the work of HSLDA, and appreciate you being here and all that you've shared. It's been great.
Well, Matthew, it's been a privilege to be with you. You've got a wonderful organization, a great conference here. I've just been blessed by communicating with all the folks here, and thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, that was a great reminder that everybody doesn't love homeschooling.
That's right.
And for some reason, they want to regulate it or control it. And many probably believe that they're trying to be helpful,
right,
trying to protect children, those kinds of things. So we don't want to assume they're operating not in good faith. Some just want to control everything.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So either way, just like Mike Donnelly said, the importance is that we're aware and that we are fighting for parental rights to choose the educational methods of our children and medical and other kinds of decisions that they're making. So we appreciate HSLDA, who is fighting for that. But we're also really grateful for our legislative committee here in North Carolina. As we said, Spencer Mason leads that. And we are in Raleigh all the time, and we're reading. We're not in Raleigh all the time. We're there when we have the session, when they're in session. We're talking to the representatives and senators. We are reading the bills, and we are watching to see if any changes are made to the law, and we'll take action if we need to.
That's right. That's another great reason why to support NCHE, because we do have that protection.
That's right.
Somebody looking out for us. I really appreciate it. Well, one of the parts of the conference that was so great was that you got to meet so many brand new homeschool families.
Right.
And Matthew talked with Jean and Victoria Comrie, who shared some important things that they are learning as they are getting started. Let's take a look at that now.
All right, we are here at the 2022 Thrive NCHE Homeschool Conference, and I have met some more conference goers here who are now new friends as well, Jean and Victoria Comrie and
Talia.
Yes. She's having a great conference, at least right now.
Yes.
Maybe
she partied herself out. She was having a ball the whole time.
Having way too much fun. And so tell me the ages of your kids.
So we have 4 kids, ages 6, 4, 2, and 7 months.
So you're just kind of getting started.
Yes.
Just getting started, yes.
Just in the very beginning stages.
Okay. And you'll start in the fall?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how's the conference been for you so far?
Well, it's been completely fantastic. It's been encouraging. It's everything that we needed, I feel like especially in the way of encouraging us spiritually. That's been like my favorite thing. Like I feel like I'm being fed spiritually, and we can bring all of this back to our children, and we're going to hug them and love on them and kiss them and squeeze them, and it's amazing. So
that's right.
No, I definitely agree, and I think because for me I'm more like my eyes are focused on Jesus, and I can be like, whatever about education, whatever about other stuff, like if it's not Jesus,
secondary.
And he was getting on to me like, we got to start making the steps, and it was really awesome being in every workshop and seeing like everything is spiritual based, like biblical based, and that Jesus does fit in with education, and not just being like, okay, this is Jesus, this is education, and that you can integrate it, but it doesn't really go together, but it goes all together. It's the beginning of knowledge, wisdom, and everything. So.
And it at least gave me relief, because I'm looking at my son who's 6 years old, and I know he's, it's that time, it's that time for him to learn. It's that time to push him academically. And I come here, and it's like, obviously, yes, we have to challenge our kids, but there's a relief that I have now, knowing the flexibility that I have, in the homeschool world, that I don't just have to hammer them with books and math and whatever it is. It's like this is an opportunity to watch them grow and grow with them, and let their learning do the same as they grow. So it's been, it's great.
Yeah, it's so interesting to try to develop that vision for a life. We were just talking to Debbie Mason a minute ago, introduced to you, and she, of course, coordinates the conference for us. And she said, it's a great life.
Yes. Yes.
And that's an interesting thing as we talk here. It's a great educational choice. It's not just that. It's a great life, because what happens when you educate your children at home is you're taking that responsibility into your own heart and life. But it changes the relationships. It changes the opportunity to teach from a worldview, and you're articulating that. I think that's so important for people to hear.
Yeah.
And
that's what we really want. I mean, I mean, I don't think there's a better way because it's all what God leads you to. But for us, this is the best way, and it just leads right to Christ. And I think that's what we mainly want, is just our children to be Christ-centered, but well-informed, well-educated, articulate, confident. And it's just, I mean, that was every session. Like, it was just really amazing. And just really to make this a lifestyle, a step and ideas, and actually put forth steps. Like, okay, this is not just a goal that we have. Like, there are steps to this goal, and this is how we're going to walk out from now on, and no longer just being like, okay, this is what we would like to do, but Lord, you know, you're really, you know, like we know a plan now to be able to be like, Lord, you're ahead and you'll show us your steps. However, we have tools that we can now bring forth to the table, and you will lead that in that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to see you many more years. It was this exact age of our kids. We had 4. Our oldest was 6, about to go into kindergarten when we first got here, just like you guys. And we did this. The kids were somewhere. We had the baby, and we haven't missed for 17 years.
Praise God. Well, that's the fruit of how, like, everything, right? It shows itself. So.
Well, thanks for being here. It's been great to meet you guys and talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, I loved meeting Jean and Victoria. They're really
They
sweet.
seem delightful.
Oh, yeah. They're great.
And what a cute baby.
That's right. So I think that one of the themes that we were just talking about is, the importance of the spiritual aspect of home education. You know, there are a lot of people, more so now, who are not selecting homeschooling for that reason. Right. But I would the vast majority still believe that the spiritual aspect or the religious aspect is one of the most important reasons that they're homeschooling, is because they want to be able to teach their children their faith. And so, you know, many of them are Christians like Jean and Victoria. And so that's a part of our goal as well. We want to help you disciple your kids. We want to help you help your children know Christ and follow him if that's your goal. And so, and one of the greatest ways to do that is the conference.
It is.
We had a great conference.
It was a wonderful
conference. Good. But I want to let you know the dates for 2023, which are May 25th through 27th. So save the date. Go ahead and put it on the calendar. It's outstanding, just as they were saying, something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So getting back to my notes here, we're going to go into the homeschool tip of the week. And what I want to share is a workshop, some of the content from a workshop that I did at the conference a couple of years ago. And I called it How to Plan for Your Best Homeschool Year Ever. And I have to admit, I kind of stole that title because there's a book called Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt. And so there are quite a number of similar principles in it. And then I just applied it to what if someone's planning their homeschool year and how would that look? And so that's what I wanted to share. It reminds me of a story, especially as I start with the main. I'm going to give you four tips here. One is to get a vision, or I would say to clarify your vision. Mm-hmm. And the vision is being, where am I going? Where do I want to end up? What's the result of this going to be in the lives of my children and in my family? But it reminds me of when I was a kid in middle school, my best friend, Pete, down the road, his dad would drive us anywhere. And so we would go and just say, take us to the mall or take us to the basketball court. And he would just say, okay. And he'd get in the car and go. Half the time, he didn't even ask where we were going. We just asked him to take us somewhere. So one time we played a joke and we just said, hey, can you take us somewhere? Okay. And he just gets in the car and we start driving. Well, he didn't know that in the back seat, we were flipping a coin. Heads was turned right. Tails was turned left.
So you were
we weren't going anywhere.
Going on a goose
We weren't
chase.
going anywhere. And he drove all over town for a while. And then finally he's like, where are we going? You know? And so that's right. So this is the not how we do a vision, right? The vision is I know where I'm going. I know what I want it to look like. And so we make decisions every day and at each turn to get there. You know what some people are doing though? They're like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going to get up and do something else today. It's like probably not a good plan.
Not a good plan.
So where do I want to get to? and you've probably heard this before, but I still think it's a great idea, and that is, what would you like? This is kind of a vision way of thinking about your vision. What would you like people to say about you at your funeral? If you died today, what would they say? Now, that's sometimes not a very fun thing because you go, I don't think they'd say what I want them to say. What would you want them to say? And if you write that out, thinking of the different relationships of your life, that's your vision. That's who I want to be. That's how I want to affect my children. That's who I want my children to be. And then what you do is you just take that statement and you turn it into the present tense. Instead of, my dad was such a good listener, and he taught me about Jesus, you turn it into, my dad is a good listener. You know, I am a good listener, and I'm helping my children follow Jesus. So that becomes your vision statement. So that's one little trick of figuring out, where am I going, and what do I want this to look like? And that way, if you write something out, this is where I'm going, then you want to review it every day, every week or something, so that you remember, okay, that's where I'm going. And that brings us to the last point, which we'll get to in a minute, which is, then how do I plan based on that?
Right.
But first, we will, I'll go ahead and go to the second one, which is to choose faith, and to remember that you're going to need help from God to do it. But most importantly, He will help you. So we have a lot of discouraging thoughts, a lot of lies. Some of them are, I really don't have what it takes to homeschool my kids. That's something that a lot of people struggle with.
They really do.
You might think, I definitely am not going to be able to teach them blank, whatever your subject is. You know, maybe it's, I cannot teach them to write, for sure. Cannot teach math, for sure. And so you feel like, well, I can't do it. Maybe you say, I'm definitely not going to be as good of a teacher as so-and-so. So you're comparing yourself to others.
Yes.
A main one is, you're going to ruin your kids. Or, you know, you think, I'm going to ruin my kids.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to prepare them, you know. So what do we do with that? I think the most important thing as you start a new year is to get into a position of faith by remembering, I'm not going to do everything perfect. I don't really have everything I need, but if this is what God wants me to do, He will give me everything I need to do it. And I have community, I have resources, I have people like NCHE that will help me, so I will be able to do it.
Right.
You know,
that mindset shift is so important.
Yeah. So that gives you hope. One of my favorite verses is 2 Corinthians 9:8 that says, and God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. So He's the one who makes us sufficient. And homeschooling is a good work.
It is.
It's something that God calls many of us to do, and He will help us do it. So you go in and say, I can do it. God can help me do this. Here's another one, is complete the past. Sometimes we get discouraged because you're like, oh, I know I blew it last year.
Oh, yeah.
I know I didn't finish this. I didn't finish that. You know, and I'm just going to do it again.
With so-and-so, yeah.
Yeah. And you think of the things you did wrong, and it's discouraging.
It is.
And so one thing to do is complete it. Like, okay, let's just go through it and deal with it. Let's go through and deal with, are there things that I need to learn? Great. Just admit it. Just admit, I have things I need to learn. I can do better this year. If you feel like you did something wrong with your kids or whatever, then you just admit it, confess it, and move on and say, I can learn from that. And it's okay that I'm still growing and learning. The thing to do is don't let that weight of guilt just keep following you around.
Oh, that's so important.
And weighing you down, you know, and regret. That regret is a big one. That's really hard. So watch out for that. Watch out for regret. Watch out for guilt, and just process your last year, and then put it in your archives, put it away, and move forward and say, we can do it different, and I can learn and grow.
Exactly.
So that's positive. And the last one is to set goals. I'm kind of a big procrastinator.
Me
And
too.
so I have to set myself some goals and deadlines. And so you get your vision and then you say, what steps can I take now? And you probably have heard all sorts of things about setting good goals. But one of them that I'll mention is to be specific. For example, you don't want a goal like this: be a better mom. That's too general. But be specific. Hug and smile at my children every day.
Yeah.
So that's a way I can be a good mom
Right.
or a good dad. But it's specific.
Yes.
So set specific goals that will help you do something each day. So we have the recording of that in the show notes. I'm going to have a link for the recording of that workshop if you'd like to hear the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us this week, and we'd love to hear from you. Send your comments or questions to the Homeschool Show at nche.com. Please help others find the show by subscribing, rating, and leaving a review on Apple Podcast and YouTube. If you think this show will be helpful to your friends, share that with them as well. And to learn how to subscribe, you can go to nche.com/The Homeschool Show.
That's right. Thanks for being here. Until next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.